you guys and everything.
I have a mailbox now. I mean, that's not lying.
Oh, you see,
So now I can always use delete stuff in my mailbox. Great.
Okay, it's 12 o'clock. We can go ahead and get started. If people are late, they're late. Did everybody sign in? Okay, everybody got a copy of the presentation? Good. Everybody got a note card? If you don't have a note card, what we do with a note card is a little unorthodox, but I found that this really works when you're conducting a meeting and you have a lot to cover in a little bit of time. No questions during the presentation. If you have a question, write it down on the note card and put your name on the back of the note card. And what I'll do is at the end, I'll collect them. I'll answer as many as I can here, and the ones that I can't answer here, I'll email you the answer. So that way everyone's question gets answered and we don't run out of time. So today's presentation is called Purchasing Technology. And the question was raised, is this something that's only for Towson, or is this something that you can use in your personal lives? It is a perfect 50-50. Well, so overview, I don't need to read that. First topic we'll talk about is printers. I put this one first because this is the one that everyone asks about. The differences between a laser printer and a color and an inkjet printer are pretty simple. You have laser printers use dry toner, inkjets use liquid ink. Explains a little bit about how they work. So what's better? That's the question. And the answer, there really isn't an answer to this. It depends on what you're using it for. You know that laser printers are expensive to buy. The ink is kind of expensive as well. But it doesn't dry out. If you're someone that only prints something like once a month, laser printer would be really great for you. I have one under my bed. I print out something maybe once every other month. But I have to worry about the ink going dry like you would with the inkjet printer. Laser printers, they're really good if you're going to have multiple people using them. A lot of them support networking capabilities so you can share the printers. You usually can get more pages from a toner than you can from an inkjet. But there is a caution that if you're someone that likes to print photography, print art, inkjet printers are better at printing art and photography. But unfortunately, like I said, the ink can dry out. The nozzles can be clogged. You can go through ink really fast, and ink's pretty expensive. But they are cheap to buy in the beginning, but that's kind of, you have to think about the long-term use because they break easy too. So do you want to buy 5 $50 inkjets or one $200 laser jet? So, the terms to look when you're purchasing a printer: ppm, pages per minute. There's black ppm and color ppm. They're going to be different. Obviously, printing in color is more time-consuming than printing in black and white. Printers: wireless, hardwired Ethernet, traditional USB 2.0. If you're buying a printer, you're going to use multiple people. Find one that has a network port on it, because we bought my mom a wireless printer, and it's kind of like a delay when the network tries to find it, whereas with the hardwired printers, they work a lot better. Very, very old printers you might find that use telephone connections, which you might sometimes hear referred to as RJ11. DPI, dots per inch, that's how much detail the printer can print, but it's sometimes a little deceptive because if I have a 200 DPI image and a 300 DPI printer, it's only going to be 200 DPI because the printer can't make that extra detail appear out of nowhere. It's not magic. Now this is something that a lot of people don't know, but if you've ever seen the model of a printer and it has all those letters after it, they actually mean things. So if you tell me the model name of a printer, I can tell you what it supports just by looking at the letters after the name. So our hypothetical HP 1500 CND WMF supports networking, automatic duplexing, wireless connectivity, multifunction copy, print, scan, and fax. It's also a fax, and it's a color printer. This printer doesn't exist because you can't get all, we probably wouldn't find all of that in one printer. But so that's how you can, if you want to look at a printer and all you can find is the model number, that's how you can tell what features it supports. Usually the ones you see around campus are N or ND. And those are pretty standard abbreviations. So cameras. You have your digital single lens reflex versus your point and shoot cameras. Some technical details in there. DSLR cameras have a lot of interchangeable lenses, a lot more control over what you're going to be, over how you're composing the picture, versus the point and shoot cameras are usually kind of small, but they're kind of nice because you can slide them into your pocket. So you're going out to dinner. You know, do I really want a big giant SLR camera to take a picture? I just want some on the side of my pocket. Camera terms. There's a lot of terms here, and it's probably easier to read on your PowerPoint. Megapixel is 1 million pixels. Mega, 1 million. Metrics, don't like them, but that's what they use them. Pixel, 1 pixel is defined as a single sensor element on the camera's photosensitive plate, which is deep inside the camera. ISO speed, this is a really important one to pay attention to when you're buying a camera. The lower the ISO, the more light is needed. The higher the ISO, the less light is needed. The caveat to that is something called grain. Grain is, if you've ever seen a picture that looks almost like someone put sand on it, that's called grain. In the digital world, grain is known as noise. And it's just a byproduct of the higher ISO. In the case of old film cameras, it was actually they had to make larger silver halide crystals. In the case of digital cameras, it's just the electronics. There's also the sensor size, which is the size of the actual plate that's deep in the camera. One of the things you have to be careful is if you have a really small plate, you can sometimes get bad pictures if they try to cram too many sensors into the one plate. Digital zoom versus optical zoom is something you really want to pay attention to. Optical zoom is using the glass optics of the camera to increase the image. Digital zoom is using the camera's computer to try to calculate what it thinks the image should look like. Optical zoom is always going to be better than digital zoom. Optical zoom is always going to cost more than digital zoom. For DSLRs, you may see something called TTL through the lens. It's just a measure of, it's just a way of using an external flash if you decide to buy an external flash. You want to make sure your camera supports it, otherwise it's going to be rough. This is something new that's come out over the last 4 to 5 years. Waterproof reusable digital cameras. You used to have to buy really expensive housings to put your digital camera in if you wanted to take it underwater. Or if you want to take it on the beach, you could take the risk. You could end up like me. I took my camera out on the beach, got a couple grains of sand in the motor that retracts the lens. Time for a new camera. The waterproofing is actually built all around the camera. So you can take it into the water. Usually these are also built to withstand temperature extremes. They're built to be dropped. They're pretty rugged. What you want to keep in mind is you want to review the maximum depth you can take it underwater. If you're planning on going scuba diving or snorkeling, you want to make sure that the depth you're going to go is not going to exceed the depth the camera is rated for, or you avoid the warranty. Other thing to keep in mind is there is a second piece of glass, plastic right here, that keeps the lens itself waterproofed. And if that gets dirty, that can sometimes have the camera will have trouble focusing because it's seeing the dirt on the plastic and trying to focus on that. So you want to keep that area really clean. So obviously, purchasing for cameras, what I'd recommend is pretty much anything in computing. The bigger, the better. But again, as I said, you want to make sure it's all three. You want to make sure it doesn't have a really high ISO, a really high megapixel, but a tiny little sensor plate, because that's going to cause problems. Like I said, beware of the cameras that have one value, one high value, because they have to take something from somewhere to get to that. Wireless routers. I'm doing good on time. What is the difference between a router and a switch? This is another common question I get. A router is a device that assigns IP addresses to all the devices that are connected to it. A switch simply allows you to plug in multiple things into one port. So you could think of it as a router is like your circuit breaker. It's sending electricity to all the different outlets in your house. A switch is just like a surge strip, allowing you to plug your TV and your DVR into the same outlet. There's truly an alphabet soup of wireless networks out there, but these are the current signal standards. A, which is it's not used very commonly. B, which is the original one that came out in consumer popularity. G is the evolution of B. N is what you currently see most on the stores offering. And AC is coming out slowly, starting to make inroads into the market. Some of the new Dells that we're purchasing from Dell have AC cards in them now. But market share is growing slowly but steadily. All of these standards are backwards compatible with each other. So if you buy an AC device, you'll still be able to use your G device. You just will be limited to the lower of the two numbers. So your G will still function at 54 megabytes, even though your router can support 400. A caution is B wireless devices, get rid of them. Replace them and upgrade them, because they will actually bring the network down. They actually, on some of the APs around campus, block B connections because they bring the whole AP down and slow it down for everyone. So get rid of your B. There's two frequencies that wireless networks operate on that you'll see when you go out into the store. You'll see different boxes that advertise these. 2.4 gigahertz is the most common frequency, but it's also shared by cordless phones, so it can be kind of congested. 5 gigahertz is the new frequency that that's coming into the market. It's a lot quieter frequency because there's less interference. The caveat is the higher the radio frequency, the less distance it can travel. So a 5G network can't travel as far and penetrate as deeply as a 2.4. It's actually an interesting thing about radio is the lower the gigahertz or the megahertz or the hertz, the farther it can travel. So Morse code can penetrate nuclear fallout. Wireless N, it's like I said, it's the most common standard now, but G still has a very large market share. So when you're thinking about purchasing a new wireless router, look at what you have. If everything you have is N and you're not planning on replacing it anytime soon, it really doesn't make sense to pay the extra money for AC because you're not going to be able to get the advantages of it. And the way computers work, it'll probably be something else by the time you do upgrade. So buy based on what you have. And like I said, N is the standard you see on iPads, cell phones, Towson equipment. And again, everything's backwards compatible, but the caveat about the B devices. TVs and monitors, another popular subject. Lots of terms here. LCDs, liquid crystal displays. The crystals are what creates the image. They are usually backlit by a fluorescent light. LEDs are the same liquid crystals, but they're usually backlit by a light-emitting diode. Plasma is plasma. There's plasma in the TV that produces the image. We have HDMI, which stands for high definition multiple input. And that's a cable that combines your high quality audio, your high quality video. For some devices, it can actually be used to control another device. It's very good. You also have high HDCP, high definition copy protection. which basically is a security system that prevents an unauthorized device from receiving the high-quality audio and video, just a way to try to deter piracy. So you can't capture that high-quality audio and video on your computer and then put it on Pirate Bay. DVI, which is a digital video interface. It's high-quality video, but there's no audio with it, so you have to have a separate audio cable. DVI is commonly seen on computer monitors, and if you look at the back of a computer, it is the longer rectangular white port. VGA, Video Graphics Array, it's the older video standard, but it's still very common, does not carry audio. And as monitor sizes start to get larger and larger, you actually start to see the image gets fuzzier and fuzzier as you're using VGA because it just doesn't have enough resolution. It's identified by the smaller trapezoidal blue port on the back of a computer. You may see terms such as 1080 and 720. These terms simply refer to the number of vertical lines that a TV can display. The higher the number, the better the quality. P&I stands for progressive versus interlaced. Progressive scan, the entire picture is refreshed. Interlaced, it alternates between refreshing the even and odd lines. Again, an important note, your 1080p TV can only display 1080p when it has a 1080 source. If you're trying to watch Simpsons Season 1, which is going to be around 480, you're not going to get 1080p out of it. The lower number is going to govern what you can get. Some TVs do have systems that try to upscale, but again, digital zoom kind of thing, it may or may not be hit or miss. A lot of TV is 720. Component video, you may have seen this like a buffet of video cables. You have 3 video and 2 audio cables that break it down to brightness to red and brightness to blue. And again, the audio is broken left and right. RCA, which is kind of the famous red, white, and yellow cables, video and 2 audio. And then coaxial cable is obviously everything in one copper cable. Screen refresh. So if you're looking to buy a TV or a monitor, this is probably the most important thing to pay attention to. This refers to how fast the screen could refresh the image, how fast the plasma can change, or how fast the crystals can change. So if you buy a TV that has a really low refresh rate and you're watching the World Cup, you're going to see pixelation because the crystals and the plasma simply cannot change that fast enough to make the image look smooth. As you can imagine, the higher the refresh rates, the more money you're going to spend on the TV. When it comes to refresh rates, plasma is inherently better because it's going to refresh almost at the speed of light, very fast. Whereas LCD and LED TVs, 120, 240, somewhere around there, plasma can be over 600. That's just the physical properties of plasma enable it to be that much more efficient. But there are some drawbacks to plasma, as you'll see. With our LED LCDs, we have lower costs, they're cheaper, they use a lot less energy, they're a lot cooler in terms of how much heat they produce. You get a lot of sizes, but they do struggle to produce some colors, and you do sometimes have issues with viewing angles based on the light, ambient light in the room. Whereas with our plasmas, we get a very high refresh rate, we get very deep colors, very rich color, but they are prone to burn-in of static images. So if you leave like the little news logos on the bottom, it used to be a really big problem is the logo would get burned onto the screen, but they've come out with a lot of new technology that kind of eliminates that problem. So pretty much now you'd have to like use a computer you'd have to have a computer desktop displaying for a long time before you could actually burn that into the screen. I had a plasma TV and I played Xbox a lot. Probably had about 4 years, played Xbox all 4 of those years. I never had a problem with burn-in. Plasma will darken over time because of the physical properties of plasma. It will start to degrade, and it does produce more heat, which can be good in the wintertime, bad in the summertime. Smart TVs are coming out. They're very popular now. I think they're going to continue to grow in popularity. sort of combining a computer and a TV. You can watch Netflix, Hulu, interactive TV listings, Facebook. You can usually stream video from a computer to the TV or watch videos on a USB stick or a hard drive if you have your videos on a hard drive. Neat technology. VGA versus SVGA versus SXG VGA. What? You're going to see these terms in terms of resolution. I could tell you what they all mean, but it would just be easier to show you. So when you look at this graph, I'll kind of go through with you. So you're going to probably want to look at this graph in your note and your presentation. Actually, I should have made this full screen. So you're going to follow these lines down, and they'll tell you what the different resolutions are. And then each of these lines is the aspect ratio of the picture. So you've heard 16:9 is widescreen, 4:3 is traditionally what older TV used to be presented in. And then these are the megapixels in terms of the quality of the video. So if you ever want to know, like, if you ever want to know what these resolutions are and you just have a name, you can look at the graph and it'll tell you. I think this is the right light. Again, there's a lot of different possible recommendations for TVs, you know, based on what you're looking for and what your budget is. Just watch the refresh rate. That's probably the best advice, because all TVs have different purposes. Computers. The CPU is not the tower. They are different things. The CPU is the brain of the computer. It does the math that makes your computer work. Speeds are measured in gigahertz. RAM is your random access memory, which stores information coming and going to the CPU. Hard drives store data, obviously. Motherboards connect everything together. The video card processes the images to be sent to your monitor so you can see what you're doing on your computer. So you may have seen these two numbers, 32 versus 64. They refer to, technically, is the length of the data units the computer can address. What you need to know as a consumer is 32-bit systems were very common until very recently. 64-bit has exploded. As the programmers have gotten better at using it, the tools to write programs in 64-bit have become a lot more user-friendly. 64-bit, and as things get bigger, 64-bit is just going to go up. Wouldn't be surprised if 32-bit dies off in a while. 32-bit systems have a fatal flaw. Because of the size of those data units, you cannot use more than 4 gigabytes of RAM in a 32-bit computer. You can put it in there, but the system cannot use it. You can put 8 gigs into a 32-bit computer. It will only show you have 4 gigs. It cannot use more than 4 gigs of RAM. 64-bit plugs the hole there and allows you to use 1,000 terabytes of RAM, which is a ridiculous amount of RAM. 64-bit systems will run 32-bit software, but they will not run 32-bit drivers. You have to find the 64-bit drivers, which is a problem for older equipment, as I'm sure everyone in here has learned at some point. Printers and DSS, printers everywhere. Drivers, what are they and why do they drive me crazy? They're specialized software that allows the hardware to interact with the operating system. They are model and operating system specific. The reason that they are constantly updated is that because they interact with the core of Windows, as Windows changes, the drivers have to be updated. The core of Windows radically changed from XP to Vista 7 and 8, which is why a lot of those older drivers don't work anymore. Microsoft has been doing a better job about finding ways for old drivers to work, coming out with sort of generic drivers that give you a basic level of functionality. But again, there are limits, and there are sometimes you have to just upgrade. CPUs fall into two main companies, AMD and Intel. Intel has the current line are the i3, i5, and i7. As you can imagine from the theme of today, the price and the quality are directly proportional with the number. The i7 is a lot better than the i5, which is a lot better than the i3. i3s they're very cheap, but they're usually sometimes slightly crippled in how they can do mathematics. So if you're planning on editing those high-quality videos, those 50 megabyte raw images, you probably don't use an i3. I would never buy an i3 personally. AMDs, they have a lot wider variety of processors, but generally the FX models compete with the i5 and the i7, and the Athlon compete with the i3. The crippling of the low-end CPUs was most famous in Intel's Celeron line, leading it to the popular name of celery stick, because it was about as useful as one, unless you like celery. A couple terms you may hear, hyper-threading and multi-core. Hyper-threading is having more than one physical brain core on the computer. So the computer can actually do two different things at once. Hyper-threading allows a single processor to do two different things, having an assistant versus multitasking. Graphics cards create what you see on the screen. They come in two flavors, discrete or integrated. Discrete graphics cards are actually physically separate from the main motherboard, and integrated graphics are built onto the motherboard. If you're going to play video games, you need a discrete graphics card. Hard drives, they store data. They also store the operating system. Two main types of hard drives, conventional and solid state. Conventional drives use data stored on platters that rotate at high speed and are read by a needle, like a record player. They do come in sizes up to 4 terabytes. But because of the moving parts, they are one of the major fail points on modern computers. Solid-state drives used to be the toys of the super rich. They used to cost thousands of dollars. And they were very small. They've come down in price significantly. You can get a 128 gigabyte solid-state drive for under $100 now. They do not have any moving parts. It's like having a giant flash card or a giant thumb drive. And they are so much faster. I have one in my laptop, and it boots in less than a minute, from when you push the switch to when Windows is ready to work. They are very fast. I highly, highly recommend them. And actually, they are going to start becoming standard in Towson computers. Towson desktops that you get through the trade-up program and through the refurbishment program are going to include solid-state drives as a standard option. And any laptops purchased through me will get a solid-state drive. Unless you have a very special reason to need a very large hard drive, go solid-state. And the other trick you can do, if you do need that large hard drive, you can buy a second hard drive and just use it to store data on, and then run Windows and everything off the solid state. Very nice. Please back up your data. I made this bold. I thought about making this its own slide, but data recovery costs thousands of dollars if you need to have it done. They basically, if the hard drive breaks, it has to be sent to a clean room, which looks like, if you've ever seen them making the NASA videos where they make the space probe, it looks like that. People wearing white suits, respirators, everything. They have to open up the hard drive in a sterile environment and try to repair what is broken. It isn't even always possible. You can back up your data securely online for $60 a year. It's not that expensive. This is not an official endorsement of Carbonite. Even if you don't want to do it online, you can buy an external hard drive. But back up your data. You know, when I worked in OTS, I can't tell you how many people lost data, and we had to tell them, your department's either going to have to chip up like $3,000 or you're not going to get it back. And budgets are tight. Use your H drive, use your O drive, but please don't put social security numbers or credit cards on your O drive. You will get a demerit from Todd Spar. Operating systems. Vista. Fail. No other way to put it. They tried to do too much in one release. Prone to slowdowns, prone to other problems. The longer you use it, the slower it gets to start. Windows 7 is still the current Towson image, beginning to show its age. It's going to reach the end of mainstream support in 2015. What mainstream support means is no new features. It's going to reach the end of all support in 2020, which means the end of bug fixes. Microsoft has actually shown that they're going to honor, that they are committed to these. There was a major security flaw that was exposed in XP a couple weeks after the drop-dead date for support, and they're not fixing it. They're staying true. So they're going to stay true, and it's what they have to do, because if they fix that one bug, people are never going to upgrade. And 64-bit XP is terrible. Windows 7 fixed many problems in Windows Vista. 7 is sometimes referred to as Windows Vista Service Pack 3 because it fixed all the problems in Vista. Windows 8 is no longer really available. Windows 8.1, it added some features to 8 that improved the usability on non-touchscreen devices. And Windows 9 is expected out in mid-2015. What it will look like, they're very tight-lipped about. Remember, Windows XP is dead. Dead. Buried. Cardiac arrest. Dead. Whatever you want to call it. They are not publishing security updates for Windows XP. If you continue to use Windows XP, your personal information is in danger if you go on the internet. There are known security exploits in IE that are not patched because they were discovered after the drop-dead support. Upgrade your system. You are risking your personal information by running Windows XP on an internet-connected computer. Cannot stress that enough. Bigger is better. Boy, where have you heard that phrase? 5 times today. However, you don't need a supercomputer to check email. You do want to get at least an i5 processor or an FX Phenom processor. 8 gigabytes is a good baseline for RAM. Solid-state hard drives are, like I said, they're wonderful. They're the best thing in a long time in computing. But large ones are expensive, so you could use a USB drive if you need extra storage. If you are purchasing a laptop, consider a 9 or a 12-cell battery. They are bigger, so they will stick out from the profile of the laptop. But a 9-cell battery can give you 4 to 5 hours of battery life, sometimes more. Especially with the solid-state hard drives, they use a lot less power than regular hard drives. And buy a warranty. Buy a warranty. Because Dell, Lenovo, HP, they all get the parts from the same companies. Western Digital, Seagate, they sell their parts to these different computer manufacturers, so they all come from the same source. And just what I said, specs are more important than brand, and buy a warranty. Global production and globalism. Macs are an option. I had to put this in there. They are a growing market share. Mac prices are higher because of the law of competition. Apple is the only company that is allowed to sell Macs. Many different companies make Windows computers. More competition, lower prices. Capitalism 101. Data recovery on a Mac can be harder than a PC. And there are fewer apps, especially for those that enjoy freeware. However, Microsoft is investing in the Mac version of Office, so that is getting that got a really big refresh, and it's probably going to get another big refresh to really be competitive with what's being offered on Windows. Many people, including my friends, have told me that Macs cannot get viruses because that's what the Apple Store told them, and they're geniuses. This is not true. There are security flaws in Mac. There are ways to hack Mac. The reason you don't hear about it is Mac requires user authorization to install software. Windows has the same feature. It's called user access control. But most people disable it because it's annoying to have the little pop-up that says, are you sure you want to install this? Macs have a lower market share. Why would you write a virus to infect 10 computers when you could infect 100 computers? That's probably the bigger things. There was a decent-sized outbreak about a year and a half ago of Mac viruses. Buy an antivirus. It's only a matter of time. As they get more popular, they're eventually going to start to be targets. This is not true. Tablets. You have your 3 types of tablets: your iPads, your Android tablets, and your Windows tablets. iPads they're iOS. Androids are based on Android. Windows are based on either RT or x86. Android operating systems are named after desserts. Ice cream sandwich, Jelly Bean, and Kit Kat are the most common ones out right now. Not sure how they got away with that. It should be a copyrighted name. If the tablet says it supports 3G or 4G, what that means is you can purchase an optional data plan to get data without Wi-Fi. It does cost money. The Apple tablets, the starting is $20 a month for 1 gigabyte of data. If you're traveling a lot and there's not Wi-Fi everywhere you go, it can be really useful to purchase that. We'll have to do a comparison in 2 because PowerPoint doesn't have a 3-way comparison template. iPads, you have your full and your mini. You have a large app store, strict app store acceptance rules. Apps may cost more money, but there's a lot of educational and classroom support for iPads. Handwriting support requires an app, and there is a limited hackability. Android, same thing, variety of sizes, lower cost. They have a large app store as well. They do have a more relaxed app store policy for what they allow you to publish. It does create more small developers, but it does also create more trash apps. Lots of free apps. Handwriting support's the same. And there is an extensive hobbyist community for Android of people who write their own applications, people who do Android hacking and things like that. Windows. Important point here. Windows RT and Windows Pro are different. Windows RT is its own operating system. You cannot install a desktop Windows app onto an RT tablet. However, you get a free version of Microsoft Office on the RT tablet, which is a full version of those apps. It does support Office 365 natively, which, for those that don't know, the university is moving towards Office 365 for all faculty, staff, and students. It does have the familiar look and feel of Windows, and does offer a USB port. So if you want to plug in like a mouse or a keyboard or something. Windows Professional tablets run Windows Desktop. Apps can be cross-installed. You must purchase a copy of Microsoft Office. And it is like having a laptop that is a tablet. It's very powerful. As you can imagine, these retail for about $300 to $400. These retail for about $800 to $1,000. You may have heard the terms jailbreaking and rooting come up at some different point. Jailbreaking is a process in which you exploit a flaw in iOS to gain control of your tablet, your Apple tablet. The reason people do this, Apple limits what you can install, as well as where you can install it from and where you can access on your actual iPad. By jailbreaking it, you could install apps you didn't get in the App Store. You can go deep into the heart of the operating system and see what's in there. That's pretty much what you can do. Rooting, on the other hand, is an Android process which is designed to get you access super user. You can think of super user as an administrator on a computer. Why would you do something like this? Unlike iOS, Android actually allows you to install apps that you didn't get from the App Store. It's just a permission setting that you have to change. However, as a super user, there are certain things you can do. The two most common things that people do as super user are use their phone as a Wi-Fi hotspot without paying for it, and screenshot Snapchats without the other person knowing. Those are the two most common things people do with root. Some people also install their own custom operating systems, customized versions of Android. There's a huge development community out there that works on this, but a lot of times this is what you see people doing. Wi-Fi hotspots, stealing Snapchat pics. Despite how they sound, they are both user done, and they are not spyware or anything like that. They're forms of positive hacking. Well, the Snapchat one is debatable. iPads and Androids have a wider selection of applications. However, Windows tablets excel at productivity because they offer the full version of Office 2012. Full versions of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook. They do make up for their lack of applications with a fully functional version of Internet Explorer. iPad and Android both offer 3G and 4G. The Dell Venue tablets, which do come in either RT or full, do offer 3G and 4G options. Projectors. We covered the terms DVI, VGA. We covered those before. Lumens measure of brightness. This is a very important number when you're looking at a projector. You may also see DLP, digital light processing, involves a small mirror to create the image. Your basic guide, less than 2,000 lumens is good for a dark room. $2,000 to $3,000, which is good for a room like this. $3,000 to $4,500, which is the higher end of business and educational. It's also the higher end of what you can carry around with you. They do tolerate a lot of ambient light. And over $4,500 is usually fixed projectors, large rooms. Price goes up, lumens go up. Recurring theme. How do you buy a projector? First, decide the size of the room you're going to project in. Second, decide what you're going to project. Do you need to project a laptop, a DVD player, a camera, a VCR? Not every projector has every port. A versatile projector will. But if you're planning on projecting a VCR and you only purchase a projector that has a VGA port, you're going to have to buy something else to convert the signal. Check out the quality. Do you want to show high quality video? You're going to need a projector with a higher resolution. We have our resolutions chart in there if you need help with that. And if you're going to project DVDs, you'll need a projector that supports high definition, that supports the HDCP. Wireless microphones, I just threw in there real quick because I know something like that is coming. This is not in your presentation. This is a little bonus. I only have to be very short and simple, as you get what you pay for. The system that I'm wearing is an entry-level audio system by Sennheiser Audio and retails for about $600. Wireless audio and wireless microphones are not cheap. So thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoyed the cookies and soda and our intentionally conscious effort to be green by not providing you with plastic water bottles. And I hope you will look forward to Windows tips and tricks coming in the fall. And now if anybody has questions on the note cards, we have 10 minutes. So anybody else have note cards?
I do, but I have to rewrite mine.
Okay.
So I kind of nerded out a little bit. 5 questions.
You wrote a book. The first question is, and I have to read the questions so the camera picks it up. What are your thoughts on webcams on desktop computers and their usefulness in the university environment? I think they're definitely worthwhile. Link especially has the ability to do video conferences, and you're starting to see more and more webinars being offered as travel budgets get tightened down. So you can actually use the same principles when we talked about cameras. You can use those same principles and the same principles of the resolution chart to see what kind of quality your webcam is going to deliver. And a lot of laptops offer built-in webcams, which are quite nice. Link, webinars, presentations, conference calls. Where do you see other uses of webcams? Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
I know that they are, sometimes they're being used to do advising. They're really interesting and growing area where things like that are being used is in the medical professions. A lot of therapists and counselors now are offering webcam-based sessions for people that they're working with. So I definitely see telepsychology is it's growing. So I think those probably is a place that it'll grow with that. I also see things like advising and other things like that. You know, you could potentially one day have do your disciplinary hearing from home.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Or actually, the cases be when you have a person that has a restraining order against someone, you can use features like that to allow them to confront their accuser.
We're going to be needing some of that up at
Yeah.
Towson University Northeastern if we're not going to have counseling and DSS, academic support.
We need to coordinate. We'll talk.
All right. Special process for purchasing and installing new computers. Do we need to let you know or OTS know? So the general process for purchasing is we'd like you to come talk to me, find out what you need, what you want, what we can best, how we can best get you what you need to do your job while spending the least amount of money. I always try to say, let's try to save money. I know it's not a popular attitude sometimes in government. What you need to do is when it arrives, you can either contact OTS or contact me to have it set up. If I purchase it, it usually comes to me, so I usually set it up. Sometimes, though, it does go to the help center and they set it up for me. At the end of it, what we have to do is do a materials management sheet, which has the Towson tag number and telling materials management where the computer is going to be, what room it's going to be in, and what department owns it, because they do audit those property records from time to time. When purchasing hardware and software, how do we receive an educational discount? Well, as you know, as you may or may not know, the Towson Bookstore does offer, for personal use, Microsoft Office for about $15. There are a number of other websites online where you can purchase academic software at academic prices. Usually what it involves is sending them a photocopy of your student or staff ID card. The one thing that can kind of be annoying is that we are staff, not faculty. And some of these websites only offer their educational discounts for faculty and students. We don't count, unfortunately. But if you Google like educational software, you'll find plenty of links. Also for Towson desktops, we offer the Adobe Creative Suite for free. You just have to justify why you need it. And that's something you can request through the Help Center, but your supervisor has to request it for you. What type of camera, point and shoot, or DSLR is best for capturing high quality video and photo footage? Generally, your SLRs are going to be your better cameras for taking better pictures because they are professional. They're designed for semi to professional use. Professional DSLR cameras are very expensive, those $6,000 to $10,000. But some of the $1,000 to $2,000 range DSLRs are very nice cameras. Video, I still maintain that camcorders are the best thing to capture video. So you got one back there. Does OTS repair or inspect external hard drives? Mine will not turn on. I don't think they'll repair them, but they might. Was it? Did you buy it or did Towson buy it?
It has like 3 years of footage on it, so I was here when I got here. I don't know if it's like a new USB cord or what.
Why don't you email me separately, and we will we'll set up an appointment to come take a look at it. How do we find out what software programs are available to TU departments for little or no cost, i.e. Salesforce, Adobe Creative Suite? That's kind of a tricky one because OTS does not do the best job of advertising these programs. Salesforce is something that they've done a lot of talking about and they've done a lot of planning, but I haven't seen it actually put into use yet. Adobe Creative Suite, like I said, you just have to have your supervisor contact the help center and justify why you need it. Other software you can sometimes find is in the software center on your computers. It used to be known as Run Advertised Programs, but is no longer Run Advertised Programs. It is Software Center. And then sometimes you just have to watch the campus announcements, the T3 and stuff. And I try to bring that in. I try to share the information when I find out what is either coming or in the pipelines. So, thought I had another. Yeah, I thought I was like, there's got to be one more somewhere. Mm-hmm.
Mark Hanson.
Encrypted. Encrypted online backup, HIPAA level security. We would have to look for a specific program that offered the HIPAA level of security. I am not 100% sure that Carbonite does. But again, if you're talking about backing up Towson information that's HIPAA level, it should be backed up on Towson servers. We do have the secure shares now that if you have sensitive data like credit cards, social security numbers, we can create a secure share for you because that information cannot be on O drives, period. After College Park, everyone's going to get really serious, and they are getting serious. Will plugging into a switch versus a router itself slow down the signal on or lower bandwidth? There's several parts to this question. Plugging it in should not inherently lower it because the switch is powered by electricity, so it's getting the electricity to repeat the signal. What can happen is if you have an old switch, switches are usually rated like 10100 or 10100 1000 because networks are usually either 10 gigabit networks, 10 100 or 1000, 10 megabytes, 100 megabytes, or 1000 per second. If you have a 1000 network and you plug in a 100 switch, the switch can only operate at 100. So that will slow you down. But if you're using the appropriate switches, if you're using a 1 gigabyte switch on a 1 gigabyte network, you shouldn't see any degradation.
Even if you're filling up all the ports on the switch.
You really shouldn't see. I mean, again, there's only so much bandwidth available, period. So I mean, it's technically possible that if you had 4 people plugged into one port and they were all trying to upload a massive video, you would see a degradation. But that's just because that actual port only has so much bandwidth to begin with.
It doesn't automatically cut it in half when you're plugging 2 in, for example.
It can lower it. But again, if you're not doing anything intensive, you shouldn't notice it.
Just to piggyback off of that, like now when you buy routers, they say like this router is designed for like this many wireless devices to be run on it. So
Yeah.
Does that play into that? Or?
It can. That can be more just how many devices, what its optimal level is. Again, you're working with a pipe, and you only have the pipe can only hold so much. If you try to overload the pipe, it's just going to cause a clog. But again, if you have a large pipe and you're using like desktop applications and stuff, you should not see any kind of degradation.
Would it make a difference if you're plugging 4 things into the switch versus get rid of the switch and plug 4 into the router? Or would the flow be the same?
It might be a tiny bit faster if you were plugging directly into the router, but again, you'd have to really tax it to see a difference.
The switch doesn't divide the one router port into 4 ports at 1/4 speed. It's not like that.
It should be. Most of them are auto sensing, and they try to optimize the traffic as best they can.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Again, what brand of printer do you recommend? Personally, and this is going to go against what the university recommends, I recommend Brother printers. The reason I recommend Brother printers is because the installation process is very simple. HP printers, especially some of the smaller ones, have insanely complicated installations. I remember we spent 3 days trying to install somebody's printer because the installation kept failing. And when the installation failed, we had to reinstall the whole Windows operating system to get rid of the installation. Brother printers, 10, 15-minute installations. Officially, the campus recommends HP. And for larger printers that are going to be networked and shared between multiple people, we still recommend HP. But for the personal desktop computers, be they laser or ink, Brother. And Brother laser printers are what I've been purchasing for a lot of people recently. All-in-one versus fax copy.
So it would still be a Brother all-in-one?
If that's what if you were looking for an all-in-one, yeah.
To get it, all those.
Yeah. The only thing about all-in-ones, though, is sometimes they, sometimes when you try to get one thing to do everything, it doesn't do it very well. Sometimes you might, if your scanner breaks, then and you want to get it fixed, then your whole printer's gone too. Your copier's gone too. So you do see all-in-ones around campus, not as much as you used to. There's a lot of nice scanners out there. And if you're doing if you're scanning documents, like DSS has some really powerful document scanners. But they also make desktop document scanners for about $300 that they're really fast. They give you PDFs. So.
I'll just say as an endorsement, somebody who used to use HP multifunction printers and now does not, to Greg's recommendation, the Brother printers tend to print faster and they scan faster and they're quieter.
And they install
happier.
faster.
They install easier, and we do a lot of letterhead printing, and we find that the Brother printers print on the letterhead crooked less than the HP printers did. So,
Less crooked.
yeah.
All right, well, that's all I have. Hope everyone had a good time. We were going to do this, originally going to do this at the staff development, but then I got an opportunity to go visit my sister in Japan, and, well, don't pass on those opportunities.
Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome.
For those of us whose eyesight is
Oh, yeah,
can you email it to us?
everyone in the division is going to receive this presentation via email.
I'll take an extra one for John.
Okay.